Hello, my Bill for 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another lazy masquerade. This one is titled Solve Mysteries That Will Make You Question Humanity. This was actually suggested to me by a subscriber. I am very excited. It's been a minute since we've done Lazy Masquerade. I'm excited to get into it. All right, if you guys are excited as I am, go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, couple something special. Let's get intrigued. Yeah.
Alaska. Stark and beautiful in equal measure. A tundra full of warm-hearted locals. A land of dark winters and colourful cultures.
Love Alaska.
A state with a homicide rate well above the national average.
Oh shit, never mind.
When it comes to murder in the Lost Frontier, native Alaskans seem to be disproportionately targeted, with the indigenous population 4 times more likely to meet their end at the hands of another human. And due in large part to the lack of media coverage they receive, their cases are far less likely to be resolved.
Crazy.
Born in Pitcairn Point in 1971, Sophie Sergey was a proud member of the Yupik tribe. A bright spark with big dreams, she received a full scholarship to study marine biology at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 1990, becoming the first member of her family to attend higher education. Fairbanks marked Sophie's first foray into the big wide world. Coming from a rural village of less than 150 people, the university campus alone must have felt like a metropolis. A bubbly girl with a charming personality, a quick wit, and a quirky sense of humour, Sophie was something of a social butterfly. She flourished in her new surroundings, and within no time made a large and eclectic group of friends. In December of 1992, Sophie was told she needed braces put on her teeth. To cover the cost, she opted to take the spring semester off school, returning to Pitcairn Point to work as a teacher's assistant. Sophie returned to Fairbanks on Saturday, April 24th, 1993, to have her braces adjusted. While there, she stayed with her good friend, Shirley Wasuli, in her UAF dorm room, situated on the second floor of Bartlett Hall, a 3-dorm complex that housed 777 students. On Sunday, the 25th, Sophie and 3 of her friends caught a movie in town, and then went to the Murphy Dome recreation area to watch the sunset. This photo, taken that same night, shows Sophie with a broad smile, mucking about in the cold Alaskan snow. It would be the last photo of her ever taken alive, captured mere hours before the unthinkable. Sophie's friends dropped her back at Bartlett Hall shortly after taking this photo. There she met up with Shirley and Shirley's boyfriend Noah, a fellow student who lived on the floor above. The 3 of them ordered a pizza and watched movies in Shirley's room. At some point after midnight, Sophie asked if there was somewhere she could go for a smoke. She didn't particularly want to endure the freezing cold again if possible. Shirley told her to use the tub room down the hall, a small chamber right next to the showers which housed a single bathtub. No one ever used it, and she could switch on the extractor fan to clear out the smoke. With one of her trademark smiles, Sophie set off, telling Shirley and Noah that she'd be back in a few minutes. The couple waited for Sophie to return for approximately half an hour. Figuring she must have bumped into one of her many friends somewhere else in the building, they left a note on Shirley's unlocked door, saying that they were spending the night in Noah's room upstairs. When Shirley returned in the morning, she noticed that the door was still unlocked, and that the bed she had prepared for Sophie hadn't been slept in. At 2:42 PM, the janitor cleaning Bartlett Hall dragged her mop and bucket into the tub room. Inside, she made a terrible discovery. Stuffed in the lone bathtub, soaking wet and lying on her back, was Sophie. The 20-year-old had been stabbed twice in one of her eyes, once in her cheek, and had been finished off with a shot to the back of the head, one made at close range. Her legs were bent, and her arms were raised above her head. There was evidence that she had been SA'd, and male fluid was found on her body. Despite a round having been fired into Sophie's skull, and despite the dorm rooms being less than 20 feet away, nobody in Bartlett Hall had heard the shot go off. That being said, one female student, who was in the adjacent shower room at the time, did report hearing voices and thumping noises coming from the tub room at approximately 1:30 AM, followed by a strange crackle sound. She believed that somebody was setting off firecrackers. Though the killer was most likely a student, outsiders still couldn't be ruled out. At that time, UAF was notorious for its poor security. Just 2 months prior, a resident of Bartlett Hall had accused 2 basketball players of committing SA against her while another watched. 2 years before that, a student had been attacked in a different dormitory by a soldier from Fort Wainwright. In 1972, a student named Jodie Stamber had been murdered on campus. And that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg. Since Bartlett Hall had such
Iceberg calls Alaska. That was funny.
terrible security measures in place to protect its residents, and since people were free to come and go as they pleased, it was feasible that anyone could have gained access during those early morning hours. The male fluid found on Sophie was collected, but at that time, Alaska still wasn't making use of DNA testing. The investigation into Sophie's slaying was hampered not only by the poor quality of the local forensic lab, but also by poor police work. By the time state troopers got around to interviewing Bartlett Hall's residents, many had already graduated and left Alaska. Only a small fraction were ever questioned.
That's fucking stupid.
As the years passed by, with no new leads to speak of, Sophie's friends and relatives began to fear that her case was doomed to freeze over. That is, until 2018, when Randy McFarren took over the investigation and sent the DNA samples found on Sophie's body to a Virginia-based lab, one that specialized in a new technology: genetic genealogy. You may have noticed that a large number of decades-old cold cases have been solved in the past few years, and that's because we're now living in the age of genetic genealogy karma. Let's say you find the DNA of an unidentified perp at a crime scene, and you want to track down its owner. In the past, you'd have had to hope that their DNA was already in the national database, or that you already had suspects you could swab. Well, thankfully, things have started to become more sophisticated. With sites like MyHeritage and 23andMe becoming increasingly popular, more and more people are opting to have their DNA stored in databases like GEDmatch, which law enforcement have access to. Now a suspect's DNA may not come back with an exact match, but rather a list of partial matches, linking them to extended relatives who they may never have even met. From there, a reverse family tree can be constructed, which, with a bit of detective work and luck, can lead the authorities to the man or woman they're searching for. In the Golden State Killers case, Joseph James D'Angelo. In the Grim Sleepers case, Lonnie Franklin Jr. And in Sophie Sergey's case, Stephen H. Downs. A man with a clean record. A man whose DNA wasn't on file. A man who maintained such a low profile that state troopers hadn't even considered him a suspect during their initial investigation.
Damn.
A UAF alumni, Stephen had been a resident in Bartlett Hall at the time Sophie was slain. He had graduated without incident in 1996 and went on to become a nurse in his home state of Maine. His days in Alaska were now a long-distant memory. But, unfortunately for Stephen, his aunt had just sent her DNA to a genealogy website. She had hoped to find some distant relatives. Instead, she helped find a killer. When her DNA profile was flagged by the Virginia lab techs as a partial match to the suspects, it led the authorities straight to Stephen. Officers paid him a visit at his home in Auburn. After obtaining a warrant, they took a swab of Stephen's cheek. His DNA was an exact match with the fluid found on Sophie's body. On February 15th, 2019, after 26 years of thinking he'd gotten away with murder, Stephen Downs was charged with taking Sophie Sergey's life. His past had finally caught up with him.
Hell yeah.
During his trial, Stephen's defense lawyers tried to argue that his DNA may have ended up on Sophie consensually earlier that day, that its presence didn't definitively prove that he was responsible for her slaying. Okay. Besides, Stephen had been on the 4th floor with his girlfriend Kate at the time of the incident, watching movies in her room with several other students. How could he have been in 2 places at the same time? However, Kate testified that Stephen had been in and out of the room the night Sophie was slain, in particular during the very early hours. Not only that, but his was the only DNA found at the crime scene, other than Sophie's, and his old roommate attested that Stephen kept a .22 pistol in their dorm room, the same caliber used to end Sophie's life.
Damn.
On February 10th, 2022, Stephen was found guilty of killing Sophie. In September of that same year, he was sentenced to 75 years behind bars.
Yeah.
Stephen's lawyers tried to argue that 75 years was overly harsh, stating, "Steve is 48 years old now. He's over 400 pounds. I think his life expectancy is not going to be 103 years old. For nearly 30 years, he's been nothing but a model citizen. He became a nurse, one who cared for hundreds, if not thousands of patients." The defense then requested that Stephen be given a more practical sentence, something under 20 years. That way, he could at least hug his parents again. Judge Thomas Temple responded, "Since April of 1993, Sophie Sergey hasn't been able to hug anyone. No one's been able to hug Miss Sergey. No one will ever hug her again."
Yep.
Stephen's appeal was denied. Under Alaskan law, he'll be eligible for early release after serving 1/3 of his sentence. In his case, 25 years.
Piece of shit. We know this. We know this.
Described by those who knew him as a ray of sunshine, Dylan Redwine was a friendly, funny, outgoing teenager who had grown up in southwest Colorado with his elder brother Corey and his parents, Elaine Hatfield and Mark Redwine.
This fucker right here is a shit eater, bro. He likes to eat poo. I will link. It's a That Chapter video. It's a That Chapter video, so you'll laugh your ass off at the whole fucking time. It's like one of my better videos out there. It has a shit ton of views. I will link it. He eats the poo. The poo.
Dylan was a huge fan of practical jokes, Xbox, the great outdoors, and baseball. But most of all, he loved just being a goofball. His nearest and dearest said that he had a high-pitched giggle that would set everyone else off laughing. Everyone, that is, except his father. A man of few emotions, aside from anger, Mark cast a dark cloud over the Redwine household, constantly arguing with his wife Elaine and losing his temper. This resulted in the couple getting a divorce. A messy divorce. Mark moved out to the outskirts of Durango in La Plata County, and Elaine, Corey, and Dylan began a new life in Colorado Springs. Elaine eventually met a new partner, Mike, who proved to be a good role model for her boys. On November 18th, 2012, Dylan, who was just 13 at the time, flew to Durango by himself to spend Thanksgiving at Mark's cabin. It was a trip he made against his will. Having seen the way that he had treated his mother during divorce proceedings, Dylan couldn't help but feel uncomfortable in Mark's presence.
Right, fuck that
Not
shit,
to mention,
bro.
he and his brother had flown out to Mark's cabin a year prior and had a terrible time, having seen a side of their father that they had never witnessed before. One that we'll get to in a bit. The night before he was due to fly out, Dylan had a sleepover with a close friend, Joseph, who noticed Dylan wasn't his usual happy-go-lucky self. "He really didn't want to go," Joseph recalled. "I could see the fear inside his eyes." But Dylan's personal feelings counted for naught. A judge had granted Mark visitation rights, and he insisted on seeing his son. His older brother.
All right, if the kid is that scared to go, isn't there a way around that, man? Like, seriously. I get that that's the boy's dad, but for the child to be that scared to go around him, I don't think he deserves the right to see him. Like, that's going to have to be, like, trust is going to have to be earned before that shit happened, bruh.
Corey had also been invited, but as a 19-year-old with personal autonomy, he chose not to join Dylan. A decision that haunts him to this day.
Oh, damn.
These images show Dylan arriving at the Durango La Plata County Airport at 5:46 p.m, just before he met his father. From there, the pair stopped by a local Walmart to pick up some DVDs. This still, captured at 7:05 PM by the store security camera, is the last known image showing Dylan Redwine alive. After leaving the shop, the pair picked up some McDonald's at a drive-thru and headed to Mark's isolated cabin in the wilderness. Upon arrival, Dylan asked to spend the night at a nearby friend's house. Mark refused. In secret, Dylan had arranged to meet with that same friend at 6:30 AM the following morning, not wanting to spend any more time with his father. At 6:46 AM, that same friend sent a text to Dylan, asking where he was. He didn't receive a response. At 5 PM on the 19th, Mark went to the marshal's office and reported Dylan missing. He claimed that when he left the house to run some errands that morning, he had left his son sleeping on the couch, and when he had returned, Dylan was nowhere to be found. A thorough search and rescue effort turned up no trace of Dylan anywhere. Not in the forests, not in the canyons, not in the mountains. Strangely, Mark chose not to join the search that first night, opting to go to bed instead of going out with a flashlight to look for his son. Still, in the subsequent months, he did make numerous TV appearances, appealing for information about Dylan's whereabouts, and professing that he was willing to do whatever it took to bring his son home. He even announced publicly that the police could search his cabin. Well, they took Mark up on that offer, and in doing so, found a few drops of Dylan's blood in the living room. Mark explained this away, saying that it came from a football injury. That sounded plausible, but detectives decided to have Mark take a polygraph test, just to put their mind at ease. He failed miserably. Specifically, when he answered no to the question, "Do you know where Dylan is?" the machine flagged him for deception. But polygraph tests are only 80 to 90% accurate, and with no conclusive evidence of foul play, the investigators were forced to let Mark walk free. One person who was 100% convinced of Mark's guilt, though, was Dylan's mother, Elaine.
Oh yeah, mother knows, bro.
Both
Mothers
parents later
know.
appeared on the Dr. Phil show together, with Elaine accusing Mark of knowing more than he was letting on, and Mark placing the blame on Elaine, saying that Dylan wasn't happy and that he had likely run away. Corey also appeared on the show and outright accused his father of killing Dylan. Despite denying any involvement in his son's disappearance, Mark refused to take a second polygraph test on the show. The search for Dylan continued for months, with law enforcement conducting wide-scale searches of Middle Mountain and the Lake Vallecito Reservoir. Finally, on June 25th, 2013, searchers found his partial remains in a remote area just 8 miles from Mark's cabin, 100 yards off a secluded dirt road. Dylan's skull wouldn't be discovered until November 2015, about 1.5 miles from where the rest of his remains were found. An examination revealed that he had lost his life after being struck on the cranium with a blunt object. This was the breakthrough the authorities had been waiting for, confirmation that Dylan was the victim of a homicide. A more thorough forensic examination of Mark's home revealed traces of Dylan's blood all over the living room. On the carpet, on the sofa, on the corner of a coffee table, on a love seat, and under a rug. Cadaver dogs also picked up the scent of human remains, not only in the living room, but also in the back of Mark's pickup. Mark was taken into custody on July 17th, 2017. Due to delays and reschedulings, the case wouldn't go to trial until 2021. Perhaps the most sickening thing that came out during the trial was Mark's alleged motive for killing his son. 1 year before Dylan disappeared, he and his brother Corey had paid a visit to their father's cabin. While browsing through Mark's laptop, they came upon some disturbing images. Photos which showed their father wearing makeup, a wig, and red lingerie, eating what appeared to be human feces out of a used diaper, and in other shots, wearing that same diaper himself. Both boys instantly lost whatever respect they still had for their father. Corey snapped a photo of the screen with his mobile. During a heated text argument with Mark, the elder brother, Corey, revealed that he had seen the photos. "Hey beautiful, you are what you eat. Look in the mirror." Both enraged and humiliated, Mark warned Corey not to speak of those images to anyone, especially his younger brother. He was unaware Dylan had already seen them. From there, Corey decided he didn't want anything to do with his father ever again, and began calling him Mark instead of Dad. Unfortunately, due to the court mandate, Dylan was unable to sever all ties with his father, as Corey had done. On the night his life came to an end, Dylan had sent Corey a series of text messages. Mark was apparently berating Elaine and her new partner, saying they weren't good role models. Dylan asked Corey to send over those images of their father, the ones of him with the diaper. He wanted to confront Mark about them personally, to ask him where he got off calling other people bad role models,
Right.
to say that he was one to talk. After receiving the photos, the prosecution argued that Dylan did just that. Mark then realized that Dylan not only knew about the photos, but had copies of them which he could use as a weapon against him. In a moment of rage-fueled madness, he took his own son's life right there in the living room, disposed of him in 2 separate locations, and spent hours cleaning up the scene before reporting him missing. Mark's first ex-wife, Betsy, with whom he had 2 children, testified that during their divorce and custody proceedings, he had told her, quote, "I'll kill the kids before I let you have them." He had also mentioned that Middle Mountain would be the perfect place to hide a body. The defense tried to argue that Dylan had actually run away and had been eaten by wild animals, but the jury wasn't buying it. After 6 hours of deliberation, they unanimously concluded that Mark was guilty of second degree.
Fuck yeah.
On October 8th, 2021, he was sentenced to the maximum term of 48 years behind bars.
Should have been live.
Dylan shouldn't have met with that terrible fate back in 2012.
No.
He should have been able to choose not to go to Durango.
100%.
He should have been able to grow up. He should have been celebrating his 25th birthday today, February 6th, 2024. But instead, that future was taken away from him by someone he should have been able to trust.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to my supporters here on YouTube
Hold on.
and over on
get
Patreon.
Yeah, let's get the mask right there, bro. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I really enjoy that. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm definitely leaking that video. And yeah, it'll be up in. It's over there. It'll be over there. It'll be over there. Yeah. A white bar will pop up. Just click on it. Oh my God. All right. I really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for the suggestion. 100%, my friend. That is amazing. Oh, all right. If y'all enjoyed this video as much as I did, please go down there and leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. If you want, while you're down there going over, slap the subscribe button, become part of the Bill 5000 Nation. We do some crazy shit here. If you want to know when that crazy shit happens, ding the bell. It might work for you. It might not. But if it do, jump in on one of my premieres, go over in the live chat and be like, what's up, bro? Leave a like and dip. That's all I ever ask for. As always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Man. I can't. I haven't thought about that shit eater in forever. I made so many poo jokes, like it was ridiculous. I really did. Check it out. It's fun.